Teenagers are All right, this is not so good on the list. American teenagers are lagging behind their peers in education, folks, and you need to pay attention and watch these numbers because they are not good and we have to do something about it. There's a new international study of high school test results, and it finds that U.S. students are below average. Among developed countries, 35 other countries score higher than we do in math, 27 higher than we do in science, 23 higher than we do in reading. Now, we used to be at the top of these lists, folks. Richard Fowler is the host of The Richard Fowler Show. Jedediah Bila is a former high school academic dean, so she is perfect for us for today, and a Fox News contributor. I have a couple of, I have 3 teenagers now, actually, so wow. This matters to me, too, as well. So good morning to you all.
Good morning.
You know, this is tough, Richard, and when you look at, you know, the administration has been doing this race to the top. Arne Duncan has been trying to reform schools after everybody really woke up to what was going on several years ago, and this makes it look like he's not doing that well.
Acquisitions is LA. I had way more than 250.
Ooh,
we have to.
There we go. We got you, Richard. Go ahead.
There we go. We have to ask ourselves the why question. Why is the United States in this situation? That has everything to do with the fact that we don't treasure our teachers. Teaching should be one of the greatest professions, and they don't get paid.
How is it that we don't? You're saying they don't get paid enough?
They don't get paid. They should be making CEO salaries. They're doing CEO work, and they should be making CEO salaries on making sure they're investing in and creating America's future. Beyond that point, I think because we're in this high stakes testing society, we're in a situation where our students are trained to take a test and not trained reading, writing, and arithmetic.
But if they're trained to, two things on that. If they're trained to take the test, then we're not training them well because they're not doing well on the test. And the other thing I would say is that we throw more money at the U.S. education system than most of the schools from these countries who are doing very well. Poland is doing very well, believe me, not throwing a whole lot of money at the education process, and they are doing very well. So, Jedediah, what is really going on here?
Well, let me just quickly add that not every teacher should be making CEO salary. What we should have is merit pay for teachers, whereby if you're a good teacher and your performance is reflected in your students' academic records, you have a good dynamic with students, then you should be paid more. What we have are these incremental pay increases that if you're a good teacher or you're a bad teacher, you're subject to the same consequence. That shouldn't be. That doesn't incentivize
CEOs
people.
Don't get that luxury.
Yeah, that doesn't incentivize people to go into teaching, and that doesn't incentivize them to be a good teacher if you sit back and say, well, if I don't do such a great job, I'm getting the same benefits and the same salary as someone who is or isn't. So you have to treat teachers as individuals, I would say, to start.
I think that's one of the things that we're going to see changing. I mean, I know tenure rules in my home state, New Jersey, have started to change. The unions are starting to wake up to this, I think, Richard, that you know, giving people just a raise every year does not necessarily make them do a better job. Do you agree with that, Richard?
Well, Martha, I think there's a nuance to that argument. The nuance here is you can't encourage the best and the brightest minds to go into teaching when the profession is sort of disdained. It's like, oh, we need merit pay. It has to be about a test scores or how you do with your students. You need the best and the brightest to become teachers, and that's why folks at the American Federation of Teachers, they've been very clear on saying if we want to recruit better teachers, we have to pay them better, and we have to get rid of this high-stakes testing society and this closing schools down and really focus on getting into communities, find people who care about the community, and getting them into the classroom.
Well, none of it's working, though. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we've been doing so far in the reform, and it is not working, Jedediah. We need to wake up. We can't keep pointing fingers and saying, you know, this person's to blame. That it's not working, and until you know you're an alcoholic, you have no hope at getting better.
That's true. What about school choice? What about vouchers? What about creating an actual marketplace here, whereby schools really have to compete for each other for the best and bright students? That's how the free market works, and that's the problem with our educational system. We keep throwing money at it as if that's going to solve the problem.
I want to ask you guys one question. I want you to be very honest about this. I want to ask you about the possible decline of American society, okay? Is that what we're seeing? Because I read this morning about Poland. Poland has jumped up in this ranking. And when asked about it, one of the education leaders there said, well, you know what? We have always had really low technology. Our schools are falling down. But because many of the older, the adults in this system grew up under communism, they want better for their kids. And they don't care, if the school's falling down and they don't have an iPad in their hand, they want their kids to get ahead. So here we are spending more money and going higher and higher tech in our schools, Richard. And it is failing us. So what does Poland understand? Or can we get that kind of incentive back into our society again?
No, but I think we can get that incentive back in our society, Martha, and I think what it really boils down to is finding and educating a workforce of teachers that understand that if to get in the classroom and teach these kids at the highest levels of expertise, we need to get folks with master's degrees, PhDs in the classroom, teaching our children and installing the whole idea of the American value system where you do better than your parents do and your kids do better than you do. And in order for that to happen, we've got to have strong teachers.
It also needs to start at home. If you don't have parents that are engaged and that care about academics and prioritize that, it's not going to carry over.
It's a huge topic, and we've just barely scratched the surface. So I hope you come back and we'll do it again, Richard.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jedediah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Martha.
Thanks.
Former dean.
Teach your children well.